Avowed is an upcoming first-person RPG video game that is set in the fantasy world of Eora. The game is being developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox Game Studios. If you aren't familiar with Obsidian, they are the studio behind the Pillars of Eternity franchise, Fallout New Vegas, and more recently The Outer Worlds. Avowed is their attempt to make a game in the same vein as Skyrim. So let's break down the job listings, leaks, and connections to the Pillars of Eternity franchise. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check those out and support those original writers. With that out of the way, let's get into everything we know about Avowed. The first news about Obsidian working on a potential fantasy RPG started to circulate in September of 2019. 11 or 12 new job postings were found at Obsidian Entertainment, and the positions varied from narrative designer to artist. The job listings themselves said they were creating a team to make the next great multi-platform RPG. The combat designer position listed a focus on first-person melee combat, and one network programmer position says they will develop multiplayer gameplay systems. A few other notable mentions is they are working with Unreal Engine 4, the game will have an in-depth day and night system, ranged combat was another thing they were focused on, along with branching dialogue and first and third person animations. And there's a lot to unpack here. And at the time, fans weren't sure where Obsidian was going with all these hires and what their next title would be. But the first-person melee combat along with ranged combat mixed with an RPG and branching dialogue got fans thinking of comparisons to other big RPGs like Skyrim, especially if the game was going to focus on this first-person melee combat. It seems like a further jump away from the Outer Worlds. Then we can jump up to July of 2020 when Obsidian released the Avowed reveal trailer, which shows an arrow traveling through the world they have created. We see a look at a banner, which we will touch on later, a massive statue, which we will also touch on later, and eventually an army of some sort of undead. And the narrator says, quote, "We have always known war. It forged our empire, turned heroes into queens and kings, and decimated our foes. Now our oaths are lost, forsaken, and you must face the monsters our sins have borne. Is an oath worth the weight of a crown?" And the trailer, rightfully so, got fans very excited for this title, and fans started to break down and find all the hidden details and clues in the game, including the end scene with the magic and the sword. So at the end, we see this character pull out this sword and start to use magic in their other hand, and fans were actually able to translate the inscription on the sword itself using a script from the Pillars of Eternity games, and when translated, the sword had the word Oathbinder. And immediately the themes of oath became very apparent for this new title. Between the voiceover itself and now the sword, it seems like oath is going to be a big theme in this title, and it will be interesting to learn more about why the oaths are lost and what oaths have to do with royalty and the crown. I'm sure there's theories out there, but I'm not going to cover them in this video. It's important to state, if you don't already know, Obsidian was the developer for the Pillars of Eternity franchise, as I mentioned above, and the sword having script from the Pillars of Eternity games is not the only connection fans have found between Avowed and Pillars. It gets very confusing from a casual perspective trying to research this because there's so much disagreement in the community still, but the one thing most people can agree on is this game will be related to Pillars of Eternity in one form or another. There's one section of the community that believes this game will be a prequel set sometime before the events of Pillars, and we could potentially be following a civilization called the Engwith, which is extinct by the events of the first Pillars game. And one eagle-eyed community member captured an image of a crown of Wodeka, and this is a constant symbol in the Pillars series and has big story implications. It's also interesting to note that the crown itself, between our visuals of it in Pillars versus Avowed, there's now a crack in it, which could be representative of story beats that happened in Pillars and having to do with us piecing back together this crown. There's a lot of things that we can go in here, but yes, this crown is imagery from Pillars and will most likely play some sort of role in Avowed as well. It's also possible that we could be slightly past the time of the Engwith, and the statue we see in the trailer are leftovers from their civilizations and the gods they worshipped, and the sins we are cleaning up is actually because of them. And I don't want to give too much away, because if rumors are to be believed, the stories will tie together a lot between Pillars and Avowed. There's another camp of community members who think the game will actually be a sequel to both Pillars of Eternity games and its DLC, and will have to do more with the player having a less than desirable relationship with the gods, and that the crack of the crown of Wodeka on the banner is a hint at that fact. We could go on and talk more about these rumors, but once again, in my opinion, I tend to side more with the fact this game looks like it will be a prequel due to the weapons we see the players use in this small amount of trailer we've got and other information. But regardless of which side you land on, at least most fans can agree on this game will be connected to Pillars of Eternity. Then, just a few days after the official reveal, the leaks started to circulate around the title. The most prominent leak comes from Sponger via the Reset Era, who gave a massive list of alleged leaked information, which I will go over word for word so I don't get anything wrong, but they say, quote, "Obsidian is working on a Pillars game. I assume this regarding the info, as back then I did get confirmation that game contains spore-like creatures with few other vague descriptions of the living lands. So I did get new information about Avowed. It will be a fully open world, much larger than Skyrim. Very different, larger, more proper world, would be denser and more contrasted at the same time. The game itself will primarily be set in the Living Lands region of Eora. Not sure if it'll go like that as explicit later on, but that was the starting point. There's a big focus on world reactivity, lighting, and next-gen AI systems and physics. Special focus on physics with magic systems. Have no clue what that would mean though. There will be a real-time weather system. Don't have full details, but fog is very important as a real-time element. Rivers will have specific microphysics systems regarding this. There's also a very advanced character creation tool. Once again, no more info. There will be mod support. For now, PC is and will be very dominant as a creation tool, but it'll be fully playable on Xbox. There will also be a very large number of factions, but very different approach than with Skyrim. You'll also be able to have companions, different than in Outer Worlds. The story set, we fight against an incoming threat of tyranny, independent from previous stories. The game itself has planned bosses, and some of them are very large. Gods will have a special say in the game. There's a great focus on iconic landmarks, statues, and buildings. In terms of the world itself, there will be 2 large cities planned, with many smaller ones with strong focus on contrasting wild areas, rivers, mountains, and desolate areas, and yes, you will be able to swim. The game is still going to respect Pillars of Eternity's creatures, including the lore with new additions. There's a dynamic presentation of dialogue, and for now they are keeping the idea that you can kill everyone in the game as an option. In terms of the development team, there's around 100 people on the project, and it has been that number for around 2 years, but there was a smaller number 7 months prior to that for pre-production, so in total the game has been in production for 2 years and 7 months, and the game has already been fully into pre-production. The team will still grow as they get closer to a release, and the target date right now is late 2022 and early 2023. And he closes out by saying, keep in mind, some parts of this can change during the development process. He gave one more clarifying statement saying, quote, other studios are involved in terms of helping Obsidian work on the game, but not as large scale or as co-developers. Basically, they are baking in some shared stuff from other teams and also sharing their stuff with others. And I'll stay zipped regarding the story or other stuff that can spoil the game or ruin the experience. Can't say that I have more details here. I've shared this only for you to know the game has very strong vision and is in good hands. And there's a lot of information in this. This is where the larger world than Skyrim rumors come into play, which became a lot of headlines, along with the weather and world systems, which was supported by job listings. Gods in game lean to the Pillars of Eternity games. along with some of the cities and other things they mention, and hearing the game should release in the next 2 or 3 years is reassuring, and it means we should see more teases and information as we get closer to that date, potentially sometime even in 2021. This information was also backed up from another insider, Globereal, who said that Sponger is a legit source for the project but didn't clarify anything else. Regardless of 2 sources backing this up, with any leak, everything is subject to change as the project progresses through development, but so far it seems like this leak is legit in terms of the project itself. As for platforms, the game is going to be an Xbox exclusive, at least at the time of recording, and only for the new generation of consoles. The game will come to the Xbox Series X, Xbox Game Pass, and PC, and that's all they've announced at this time, so it doesn't look like it will come to the new last generation of consoles. And for the most part, that is everything we know about Avowed. We don't have too much longer to wait for the project since it has already been in development for over 2 years, and it seems like it is progressing smoothly. The team itself have proven themselves time and time again to create these great single-player experiences, and I don't see this title being anything less than what fans expect. That's where I'm going to end this video. Make sure to like and share, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.